Hello and well met. Welcome to the pregame hangout. It is I, Eric Scott to be the DM of this campaign. Often, I'll, I don't run all the campaigns on this channel, but some of them, and it's quite fun. And the ever so talented Alexander Pitchford.
Hello.
And we are planning to play part two of Greymantle. Uh, the thing is, like a couple of other players who are part of Greymantle are, well, maybe not available. So we're gonna see if they show up in the next few minutes. And if they don't, well, we're probably gonna be playing a duet game, which is real neat. And yeah,
Yeah,
we've done that before and it's gone pretty well. So I mean, assuming that you're okay with that, Ellie.
I'm fine with that. If that's what it comes down to, I am 100% okay with it.
Awesome. So yeah, like have you ever had this experience where you set up a game and you had it all planned and then people just kind of didn't show up because they have other stuff to do. I mean, life happens, especially as you get older, you have other responsibilities and things come up at the last minute and they block you from getting to the game. It just happens. What do you do in situations like that? Does that happen to you, Allie?
I mean, no, not at all, never. No, it happens. I mean, at that point, all you can really do is, you know, I mean, obviously assess your situation and see if you can do anything, and if you can, try to do the best with what you got. Uh, you know, it's not a great position to be in, but you do what you got to do, you know?
Yep. Well, um, as I was mentioning before, part of the advantage of having a largely improvisational DMing style is that you can kind of roll with those things. Like your plans don't get disrupted because there are no plans. You're off the rails all the time. Nothing's going to knock you off the rails, which it's a blessing and a curse. You may have noticed that I don't have my beard at the moment. I shaved last week. The wife is out of the country on one of her little jaunts, and she forbids me to shave because she thinks I look silly. Or, well, that's not quite accurate. She thinks I look too much like what I used to look like when we started dating, but that was 20 years ago. So she just finds that like unsettling and creepy. And I'm like, well, that's not good. And she says, yeah, I just laugh whenever I look at you. And I'm like, no, okay, fine. So I only shave like this when she's going to be gone for a couple weeks at a time. So it's okay. I don't know why I do this. I guess I like the variety sometimes.
That's fair. I mean, if it makes you happy, do it.
Yeah. Hmm. So it is still smoke season here in Seattle. And I keep hoping that it's going to rain and knock some of the smoke down. But we've had a dry week this last week. And it's dreary, gray all the time, but not in a good way. That's the thing. A lot of people think it rains all the time in Seattle, but actually it's mostly overcast most of the time. And when it does rain, it tends to be fairly light. We don't have the torrential downpours that you get elsewhere in the country. What's the weather like where you are, Ellie?
Uh, I'm not sure at the moment. It was raining a little bit ago, but I think it might have eased up by now. It's starting to I've lost all track of seasons. We're starting to get into like spring, I think, spring summer,
Yeah,
because we just switched up our daylight savings as well. So it is now Australian Eastern Daylight Time where I am.
nice. Yes, the tyranny of daylight savings.
Mm-hmm. Can't escape it, at least not where I'm at.
And we lack the political will to escape it.
Mm,
We could, there have been people who have been advancing political like bills to get rid of daylight savings time. Some places even have done so. Not here in Washington, though. Hmm.
yeah, that's fair. Unfortunately. I mean, like I know that what blanking on names all of a sudden. Arizona doesn't have daylight savings time. Uh, and then in Australia, Queensland doesn't have daylight savings.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at least one Midwest state doesn't have daylight savings time, which was strange because I've driven south from Indianapolis to Tennessee a couple times after Gen Con, and like I'm just driving south, not east or west, but the time zone will change as I'm going because one of those states doesn't have daylight savings time. I seem to think that that's the case, and it's very strange. I don't remember which one it is though.
Hmm.
I could be
I don't
misremembering,
know.
but there might just be a state near there that doesn't have it. It might be Indianapolis itself that doesn't have daylight savings time. Indiana, the state of Indiana. I don't
Oh,
know. Anyway,
huh.
yeah, yeah. So since we're gonna play Greymantle, theoretically, let's talk about Greymantle.
All right.
So, what was your initial inspiration for the setting, for the concept?
I mean, really, ultimately, the ultimate inspiration for me, anyway, was the fact that like I had these characters, or at least these concepts, and I couldn't really do with them what I wanted anymore. It's been a dream of mine since I first started reading fantasy novels to write, Forgotten Realms, and that was something that isn't really feasible at this
Mm,
point in time for most folks. And I was like, I've got these stories, I've got these story ideas, I've got these character ideas, and I want to do something with them. And uh that's kind of what spawned like us talking about you know a setting, like because I've kind of like this idea of I like shadowy stuff. I like incorporating shadowy stuff into stories, into as themes. And with Greymantle, I early on I know we talked about shifting up the usual kind of early to late kind of late medieval kind of
mhm.
veneer that a lot of fantasy has, and doing something. We bounced around noir. I think I ultimately settled on like sort of a Victorian-esque aesthetic with some splashes of noir.
Mhm.
Um, because it interested me, and as far as that goes, like you know, where there's darkness, there's light. I liked playing around with that idea of finding that balance between the two. That each one might not be particularly what they seem. And one of the major factors of the setting actually came from us joking about it kind of being warlocks all the way down.
Right.
Like, everyone's a warlock. There's no other casters. There's only warlocks, and
Yeah, there's
uh,
a there's a lot of eldritch magic going around in this setting.
lot of eldritch magic, but we had fun with it, and I just kind of got inspired and wanted to keep working at that. And honestly, that's kind of how that all came about. And even the characters that I'm focusing on right now um kind of boil out of those conversations, because like there's certain character types, certain character themes that I really like, especially coming out of characters like Shay, and even Shay's interactions with Illyra. Like I wanted to do some more stuff with that, and not really an option, at least
Yeah.
not that I can do anything with. Uh, and
I was gonna say, I know you like the shadows and the vampires and also a
mhm.
little bit of the warlocks too. So
Oh
like
yeah,
shadows, vampires, warlocks, that's kind of the
Yeah, that
One of the
vampires
core
vampires are going to
instructions.
play a big part in it at one point too. Like we
Mhm.
we had we had talked about that, I know. Um we had talked about that, and I think with what we were doing with some of the themes, I felt like ultimately it would be a little too much to dump vampires in there along with everything else, especially when it comes to the character that I was thinking of making a vampire. It was like she already had a lot going on,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
like,
This is
no.
true. I mean,
And
might bring in vampires at some point. That
yeah,
might
yeah,
happen. That might happen. Almost as certainly it will happen. So, yeah, that's still reserving that possibility.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, but like they're not, it's not a right out like, oh, they're never gonna be in there at all. It's more of a uh it's more of a situation of, not right now, and certainly not with who was gonna do it with. Because
Yeah.
with like I was like full cards on the table. I was going to make Sparrow a vampire at one point,
Yep. Of course you were.
and that was like, well, that was when we were operating with a much older version of the character, uh and uh and I just kind of, yeah, it felt like a little too much. But it kind of evolved from there because there's going to be Sparrow, and then there's going to be kind of like a Shay analog in there, and then at some point, this is before Sparrow was Sparrow, like I latched onto some idea that was on the character sheet you built
Mhm.
for her. There's a little blurb, and I'm like, that could be a story. That's a story right there. And so I latched onto that, which led me to making a much younger version of the character, which led to me kind of melding, kind of at some point along the way, the proto Sparrow and the ProtoShay analog kind of ended up becoming the same character.
Mhm. Mhm.
uh because there's certainly elements of both of the original ideas in, Sparrow, and how I've been portraying her, and how I plan to, portray her in the writing and the role play, possibly veering more towards Shay in this younger version that we have, on the stream. um
Yeah.
because she's
And
younger,
it
she's inexperienced, she's, still kind of finding her feet.
yeah, I think it's cool to sometimes have those characters that really speak to you and you want to like kind of make your own take on them, your own version of that sort of story. And it can produce some really cool stuff and I'm excited to see where this all goes.
Oh yeah, me too.
So yeah, uh we talk about this Greymantle thing being like the brainchild of you and me, but
Hmm.
like it's like 80% you and like 20% me. I mostly like just asking you questions and making you think about things, and then you're like, oh yeah, this and this and this and this, and I'm like, yes, awesome. But I get the chance to make some cool little. Yeah, my audio is messing around. I'm sorry if anybody's having trouble making me out. It just keeps reducing for whatever reason. Um, I like I like getting the chance to kind of make some small contributions to the Greymantle setting, and like I don't think you necessarily had any particular plan for Great Old One Warlocks, which
No.
I kind of brought that into the first game because I think it's real neat. The setting is very intrigue heavy, and they have this interesting way of relating to that kind of game. And so it also makes an interesting, not direct antagonistic force, but one that is dangerous and threatening to everything that you got going on. Like Sparrow and the the devil worshiping Hellfire family, and then this great old one Warlock are not necessarily diametrically opposed, right? It's not like
Hmm.
some hero and a villain thing. It's like three factions who are all pretty shady, who are competing about discrete goals rather than like having alignment conflicts.
Yeah, like it's definitely a lot more of a nuanced situation. It's there's not a lot of uh and well, and I think this kind of plays into some of my feelings on alignment in general. Uh Certainly alignment is a lot more of a guideline for me than a hard and fast kind of like set of like behaviors. Uh
Mm-hmm.
Especially because someone, I write a lot, I RP a lot, uh that sort of thing. Um I'm more accustomed to thinking up, motivations and having more complex, nuanced kind of behaviors to a character. Because like, sometimes that chaotic, that sort of selfish, chaotic, neutral character is gonna veer into one way or the other. Like they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have moments where they are motivated by doing something uh good or altruistic, that because something or other has motivated them to do so, or they might veer into a darker territory. uh I kind of like characters that are prone to that moral complexity. uh
Yeah, that's very much a Greymantle thing, right? Shades
yeah.
of gray.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Although I'll say this, you surprised me last time. You surprised me last time because I had initially thought about the whole like kind of like literally night side is shrouded in night, day side is constantly daytime. And I was originally like, I feel like that feels like too much. I feel like that's a little too much. And so I'd scrapped that. And so I did not expect you to come out with that. But like,
Oh, we're developing this live. If you decide
yeah,
that that doesn't work for you, you can always get rid of that concept. But
yeah, well,
yeah, or shade it, right?
yeah. I think I saw in the chat someone asked, does that, is there like in the median line, do they have normal day night cycles, and does that make it like prime real estate? And I was like, that's interesting. I do like more the idea that it's a gradual fade, not necessarily day night cycles. Maybe there's like a twilight area in the middle.
Mhm.
Uh, if we do keep that, I mean, heck, there could even be plot reasons why that doesn't like that isn't a thing later. Uh,
Yeah.
because I mean, I could see like that could certainly certainly raise other problems, you know. Uh,
Well, I suspect that um, the farther you get out from the middle, the more pronounced the cycles are. That toward the middle, everything is kind of murky and muddy, right?
yeah.
But then, like farther out, it becomes more distinctly night most of the time, or day most of the time. It would be it would be a little bit like having a if the Earth didn't have seasons, just like it was always summer on one hemisphere and it was always winter on another.
Hmm.
I picture it as being a little bit like that. Although, of course, that would fundamentally alter or perhaps eliminate life on this planet if that were the case.
Yeah, that might be a bit rough.
So,
At the very least, it's not like we have like a tidally locked planet here. It's the this only, in my head at least, this only extends to the city because of some of the weird fractured magical mojo going on in the city itself. Because shit's not right. Like this stuff there is not functioning the way it's supposed to, which extends somewhat to the laws of reality.
yeah,
It's
decisions
why,
have been made, rituals have
yeah,
been cast, mistakes have been enshrined in the
yeah,
city. Yeah,
and like honestly, and the answer for like, well, why would anybody live there is in my mind is that for the same reasons why it's broken in the first place. There's stuff there. There is power there.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and then people go there to find power. Other people flock to them. Eventually, it turns into something. And the reason why the city exists as it does is largely because of the sort of balance of powers within it. It's if any one of them got the upper hand really on the others, it could change things drastically for the city as a whole.
Right.
But for various reasons, be it matched power, be it just uh my mind completely blanked for a second there, but there's plenty of reasons why that they keep kind of one upping one. It's a constant cycle of like one upping each other, allying, betraying, to try to like get the upper hand, and the quote unquote good aligned forces in the city are not immune to this. uh it's a lot of politicking, a lot of weirdness, but it winds up making things maybe not pleasant for the people there, but certainly less dangerous and chaotic than it otherwise could be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's neat. It's an interesting playground to kind of
Hmm.
figure out.
And there's still a whole world beyond that to flesh out and explore. And
Mhm.
I'm noodling ideas, uh, but like this is why like I wanted to focus on you know this city, this place, uh, and just get that feel for things before putting the feelers out there and seeing what else exists.
Yeah. So, and I think this kind of like live development thing that we're doing is kind of neat. Like people who are watching, Greymantle won't necessarily follow exactly the rules that we set out at the table. Like we might
Hmm.
say something
Yeah.
is the way it is, and then go, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and then we'll just absolutely change it or ignore it and never talk about it ever
Yeah.
again. So.
Exactly.
I am literally getting messaged by friends who are like, "What happened to your beard? This is weird. I agree with your wife." I'm like, "All right, fine.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. I appreciate you, friends. You're so supportive." Yeah. Oh, I like the way uh Swadian put it, which is dynamic collaborative world building. Which, yeah, I feel like that's what's going on. Like we're telling a fun story and we're having fun playing, but we're also, building a world together. And to some extent, that's what all role-playing games are like all the time, is that, you're building a world, or you're building a story, or you're building an experience together. And it's just really neat. It's one of the very powerful things about role-playing.
Definitely.
I always like concur.
Yes, concur. Uh, yeah, it's something that I love. Like even when I'm doing like non D&D role play, like or just I'm just doing like more freeform stuff with friends in various settings. Some of my favorite stuff is stuff that we build on. We build off of each other. Someone will come up with an idea, and then someone carries that idea a little bit forward, and then it kind of goes from there. Uh, because that stuff it ends up feeling more organic to me in a lot of ways. Uh, so I definitely enjoy that kind of stuff.
So let's see. There are a couple questions in the chat. One which was from Voxwagen, which is a very cool name. It sounds like an ACLO name. Apologies. Thank you very much. Can you sum up the different factions as they currently exist in the creative Okay, it's just Voxen. Okay, cool. As they currently exist in the creative process. And the answer is no, we can't. We don't have enough time to do that. But
Yeah, unfortunately.
so far we have Hellfire, which is I think of them as kind of the devil mafia of Greymantle. And then we have the Shadow Knives. Is that the name of
Shadow
the
Knives, yeah.
Thieves Guild? Yeah, that Sparrow was a part of. And I have been thinking of a couple of like factions on the daylight side of things, but we haven't got to that yet. So
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to.
there's definitely the Church of Aris, which is a major faction in the city.
Right.
Aris being this goddess of kind of celestial light. So, uh, and yeah, they are definitely a major power in the city itself.
Yeah. And I should note that just because they are servants of light does not make them good guys or good aligned or anything like that. So we about need to wrap it up because we need to do our ad and such, and then come back and actually start the game. So, anything for the good of the order before we let everyone take a break for a minute? No? Good?
I'm good.
All right. See you all in just a couple minutes. Don't go away.